Cool. Let's talk to political journalist Joanna Bell and get her view. Joanna, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Your impression of Keir Starmer is just spot on, honestly.
It's getting well. I've had plenty of time to hone it because I mean I can't believe this man. He goes to Scotland where he's already about as unpopular as he can be. He's dragging Anas Sarwar, who was the front runner for the First Minister's job, down with him, and he then tells them that the place that he's shutting down, the only decent oil refinery in Britain, mainland Britain, he's shutting it down, but he says it's very important. What's he talking about?
I mean, you know, there's no rhyme or rhythm to anything that Keir Starmer does. He's, destroyed the economy so far. And, Zelensky said he would step down, maybe if, for the good of the country, but maybe Keir Starmer should do the same because so far he just doesn't have the respect of anybody.
He really doesn't. And I mean, I said that earlier. Maybe Zelensky is leading by example because the Daily Mirror, a newspaper that is now so bad, I don't even bother reading it most of the time. But they've got a front page that says, now that's a leader with a picture of Zelensky putting Trump to shame by threatening to resign. Well, it's hardly leadership threatening to resign, is it? I mean, I've seen many ridiculous front pages on that paper, but I mean, this one beats the lot, I think.
Well, I think he's demonstrating that he's not a dictator, like Trump called him a dictator. And, I mean, that has to be admirable that he's, offering to step down for the good of the country as long as Ukraine has offered security assurances. So that's not a bad thing, is it?
Well, it depends on who comes after him, really. I mean, the Telegraph did a piece last week about all the kind of the runners and riders that could possibly take over from Zelensky, and there's it's a pretty rum-looking crowd, to be honest. Because people forget that Ukraine and its political history is hardly steeped in democracy. It's a country where people have been deposed for no reason, people have been promoted for no reason. Elections have always been considered to be, a sort of an inconvenience, really.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's very likely that, it'll end up a puppet government.
Right.
So, and, it's actually quite scary. So I actually personally hope that Zelensky stays.
Right.
Because better the devil you know, right?
Well, indeed, although maybe if he has an election, as Trump asked him to do, maybe he wouldn't win it. I don't know. I don't know enough about the internal workings of Ukrainian politics to know whether he would win one.
Yeah, well, it's hard to know, really. But, at the end of the day, it's... wartime, no one has elections during war. So I really don't understand why that is necessary at this point. I think that everybody should get to the table and negotiate a good peace deal.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's happening thanks to Donald Trump, because, all these people in Europe who are bleating on about, how Zelensky must be protected and all the rest of it. Well, I never thought he wouldn't be protected. I mean, seriously, Donald Trump is not going to do a deal just with Vladimir Putin, which is what everybody
but it seems like a bad deal. He's looking for 500 billion and no security assurances. It's actually quite worrying.
Well, it doesn't worry me, Joe, and I'll tell you why. Because every single week that passes, we'll have a different story. Last week it was, Zelensky's being rowed out of the conversation. He's not talking. Nobody's talking to him. Well, it's now clear they are talking to him, and now we've got to a point where he's being asked to do something which he doesn't want to do. It's gone sort of stage 2 of maybe 20 stages, isn't it?
Well, yeah, look, I think it's definitely positive. It looks like things are moving in the right direction. And maybe Trump is just using this initial offer as a jumping off point for more negotiations.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think. And I mean, the week will end, no doubt, having had a couple of visits from European leaders. I don't think Donald Trump will listen to very much of what Keir Starmer's got to say, or indeed what Emmanuel Macron's got to say, because why would he?
Well, exactly. He doesn't seem to respect them. So far, like he said, they haven't done anything to make inroads for peace in Ukraine. So, he's got the ball rolling, and, you got to respect him for that.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, he's done, and even most European leaders actually agree with him that Europe has to do more to sign up to better military spending. There's a new chancellor coming into Germany. The French are going to get a new leader soon, probably as well. There's all manner of suggestions that NATO might have to change the way that it's put together. It's all happening surely and just purely and utterly because Donald Trump's now the president.
Well, exactly. But, in order for Britain and France, they really need to, spend money on defence, but they're going to have to take it off welfare. I mean, somebody was talking about if they want to increase the defence spending, they're going to have to stop free school breakfasts and free school lunches for impoverished and neglected children.
Yeah. Well,
so I don't know.
Something's got to give. You know, we've got Angela Rayner's just her Department of Housing has spent 20 million extra pounds since she's been in 5 months, which seems to me to be completely out of control. What we need is an Elon Musk type figure to actually slash and burn our civil service, don't we?
Well, indeed, that's it. And I think there was a few Sun covers last week about, you know, the government spending money on king prawns or something.
Yeah, that's right.
It's crazy. You know, at the end of the day, yeah, it would be good to analyze where exactly the money's been spent and, you know, where it's been misspent.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
It's definitely been mismanaged.
It definitely has. One of my favourite stories of the morning on the front of the Mail today was licence fee payers' cash given to Hamas. Kemi Badenoch's asking that question of Tim Davie. It's a pretty good question, given what's going on at the BBC.
Listen, you know, the BBC refused to even call Hamas terrorists, so this doesn't surprise me in the slightest that they're actually on the payroll. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous that, you know, all of their coverage seems to be pro-Palestine.
Yeah.
They seem to be sympathetic to, you know, the Hamas, and now we're finding out that they're actually paying people from the terrorist organization. But they did take it off the iPlayer, so that's a good thing.
Well, they did. Yeah, absolutely right. But it still doesn't explain how this documentary got made in the first place. It seems to me that they were either very, very, shall we say, lax in doing checks on who the narrator of the show was, or they deliberately didn't want to know, because it seems to me this is the kind of thing that happens all the time at the BBC. I mean, every single day, or every single week at least, there's some kind of mistake that's made that they have to apologise for, because the bias that they show, anti-Israel bias, is extraordinary.
Well, they need to launch an investigation into it, because, you know, if the taxpayers' money is going towards a terrorist organisation, then that needs to be investigated, and they need to find out who's responsible for it.
Exactly right. I mean, Kemi Badenoch has said it's profoundly troubling that initially the BBC defended the documentary as an invaluable testament to the war. Surely it should have been immediately apparent that the programme was fundamentally flawed. Such an investigation must consider allegations of potential collusion with Hamas and the possibility of payment to Hamas officials. And she also mentions the fact that this constant bias is proving to be so dangerous to the BBC, even when Israeli interlocutors are robustly interrogated and Palestinian officials can speak with little challenge. And I've seen that in action myself, as I'm sure you have. You know, I think it was not this Sunday, but the Sunday before, when what's-her-face, Laura Kunsberg had one of the Israeli government officials on. I think she had the president of Israel on as well at one point, and she just kept interrupting him, kept asking him questions that had no basis in truth, kept quoting from UN interviews, kept quoting from UN organisations like UNRWA, you know, who are already a tainted organisation, as we know, who took part in the October the 7th massacre. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable what they do, the BBC.
It's shocking, but it actually doesn't shock me anymore. You know, they're worse than Channel 4 sometimes.
They are.
It's actually shocking because, you know, at the end of the day, they're meant to be not biased. You know what I mean? So like the fact that they're showing bias is crazy, and then we're paying for terrorists to you know, terrorize Israel. It's crazy. It
is incredible, absolutely incredible. Well, if it turns out that money was given to Hamas, I think that will be the end for Tim Davie. Surely to God, he'll have to go. But we shall see.
He'll have to resign.
He will, I think so. Very good to talk to you. Joanna Bell, thank you very much indeed, a political journalist there, keeping us awake and alert at this time in the morning.